So I find that, chiropractor, naturopaths, and health practitioners get stuck because they're, as you said, they're called to healing. And what comes along with that when you have your own business is you also need to know how to be a business owner. And those are the kinds of things that you don't learn in school. You kind of learn that through the school of hard knocks or by investing tens of thousands of dollars in mentors. And that is, it's difficult because it becomes kind of the least favorite part of your job.
Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, where we guide natural health and wellness experts through the pitfalls of marketing. Each episode, you'll learn simple, effective, easily actionable, and heart-centered marketing strategies. And here's your host, Angus Pyke.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends. Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast. Now, today we're talking with Holly Chantal, and we're talking all about what to do when you feel stuck. Now, perhaps you feel stuck in your practice. Maybe you're not sure where to go next, or maybe that growth has just kind of plateaued. Or perhaps for you, it's stuck in your life. Now, if any of this sounds familiar, then you're in the right place, because one of Holly's superpowers is dealing with her clients and helping them to get some clarity around what's keeping them stuck, showing them the next stage and letting them know what their business looks like. Now, she does this through combining her decades worth of experience in brand messaging, in design strategy, in copywriting, and what I'm really excited to learn more about, her metaphysical tools and intuitive gifts. So Holly, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Sounds like it's a really fun group.
Yes, well, I'm very biased because I do think that we have the podcast of the most fabulous listeners in the world. And they are a fun group as well. Now, as I was mentioning to you before, I've been doing the online Netflix binge review over the last couple of months. I listened to a podcast that you're on, and I've been just loving all of your content. But for those of our listeners that haven't been stalking you for the last couple of months, can you give them a little bit of a background about who you are, what you do, and your kind of journey up until now?
Well, I'm very flattered to be stalked, for one. And yeah, absolutely. So I've been in business for about 10 years now. I started when I was a wee lass and got my start in website design and strategy. And what I found was that business owners really didn't know what to ask for when they were putting their websites together. And that led me into kind of designing what that looked like. So what goes on a website? What do you say? How do you set yourself apart? And how do you write about your services in a way that people really understand the value beyond the face value stereotypes that come with your profession? And more recently, I had children and kind of had to get away from the website space because project management alone was taking, way more time than I had in a day with small kids. So I changed to, now I work mostly on strategy. I help established business owners kind of pivot and really dial into what their true calling is. Because I feel like a lot of business owners, they start with kind of like an idea of what they want to do. Kind of like when you go to college or university and you choose a major and you think that's what you want to do for the rest of your life, but maybe not. And business owners do the same thing. They start with what they feel like they want to do, and then it evolves as they evolve and change. And navigating that is like right now, like what I totally nerd out about, because it requires, a lot of moving pieces, and it requires like pulling like your real authentic self out. And I feel like that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so excited to chat with you today, because so many people end up, whether they be chiropractors or naturopaths, it's a calling for so many of us rather than a job. Like no one goes, I think I might become a chiropractor. We go into it because, we're wanting to make a difference. We're wanting to help people on their health journeys. Many of us have had a personal kind of experience or had a family member that has to. So we get into practice and we're full of fire and brimstone, and then something happens when we realize that our patients aren't as excited about it as what we are. And we run up to, and as you were articulating beforehand, we communicate. So many of the people listening to this have such a really high health IQ. We understand so much about it. And then we go and communicate in our language with our big nerdy words and all that kind of stuff that to it. It just washes over people, and we can't work out, why is my community not as interested about this as I am as well? And you have some great tools of kind of helping pull out that as well. So let's dive into this whole concept of stuck. Why do people get stuck? How do we get unstuck?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So I find that, chiropractor, naturopaths, and health practitioners get stuck because they're, as you said, they're called to healing. And what comes along with that when you have your own business is you also need to know how to be a business owner. And those are the kinds of things that you don't learn in school. You kind of learn that through the school of hard knocks or by investing tens of thousands of dollars in mentors. And that is, it's difficult because it becomes kind of the least favorite part of your job. Like, you really just want to be seeing patients, you want to be helping people. And all of the marketing aspects really becomes kind of dull. And you end up outsourcing it, but you're not really sure if you're choosing the right people to do it for you, and you really don't know what you don't know. So that's one reason that these business owners really get stuck. And where I like to kind of play is kind of getting out of the like dollars per hour model of kind of just putting up your shingle and just taking clients, getting a paycheck, and that's it. And really shifting into, what are you really called to do? Who are you really called to work with? And how can we put your messaging out there so you attract those people? And let me tell you why these two things are related. Once you get there, the marketing piece gets unstuck a little bit, because at this point, you're really enjoying creating content. You're really enjoying, going on Facebook Lives, doing interviews, because you're talking about something you're super passionate about, and you get to teach, and you get to raise awareness, and you get to make an impact through your marketing and heal through your marketing beyond just, seeing people in your practice.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I love this podcast. I love creating videos, but if I had to create a podcast and videos about accounting, then some of my enthusiasm might kind of decrease down a little bit as well. So when you're talking with people and people are reaching out for help, and you're wanting to kind of pull out why they're there, like what is their true, purpose, what are some of the challenges that come up with that? And how do you go about extracting that information out of them?
I think that it's not so difficult extracting the information. It's helping people decide which direction to go in. Because if you go back to why you started your practice, usually there's a story there. There is something that you experienced in your life or that you witnessed in your life that had a big impact on you. I feel like this is a kind of a common denominator for healers, especially. For some, it's kind of passed down from the family, it's generational, and that was just like their natural next step. And then there's others that were just really, they overcame something through the work that they're doing now, or they witnessed it. And those things are pretty easy to uncover with just a few questions. But when you get to, okay, how do I share that? Or there's so much more to it, what do I leave out and what do I keep in? Like, those kinds of things are where the messaging gets a little bit tricky. And what practitioners will find is that whenever someone asks them why they do what they do, or who they work with, or what they do, they answer it a lot of different ways. And that makes them feel like they're all over the place and that they're not being clear and whatnot. However, what I have found is that when I work with clients and asking those questions and all the different ways that they answer those questions, because when I work with them, I ask them in a lot of different ways, taking like different angles on kind of the same thing, which gets a little annoying sometimes. Like, I feel like you've already asked this. Well, you answered it differently. And you can find the common threads between them. You've probably witnessed this before. Like, you can say the same thing 4 different ways and you feel like you're all over the place. But if you find the common thread, you realize, oh, this is actually my message. And as long as you're staying kind of in that same line of thought, your message is actually a lot clearer than you think.
Is Holly, is this, and it's an oversimplification, is this about kind of developing our elevator pitch, for lack of a better word? I'm not such a huge fan of that, in terms of that 30-second bite size, in terms of, hey, Angus, what do you do? Or, is that what you're kind of leading towards?
Yeah, that would be probably the end results of understanding what your message is. And the elevator pitch, I don't like that term either, but it's basically, you know, the way you describe your business when you're talking to someone or when you're uh, writing content for your website or that kind of thing. You have the opportunity to talk about what you do, who you serve, why you do it, maybe not all at the same time. And you want those answers to be consistent in a way. They don't have to, you have to say the same thing every time, but you want the underlying like message there to be consistent. And that's when people begin to remember you for that.
Got it. So I would imagine, because I'm just trying to think about, if I'm in a social setting and somebody comes up to me, I've got multiple hats that I'm wearing, but if we go back to when I was just kind of in full-time practice, if somebody had said to me, what do you do? I mean, my stock answer probably would have been, hey, yeah, I'm a chiropractor. And I wouldn't have gone any further than that as well. But you're suggesting that there's some follow-up stuff that we probably should be working on and communicating with that. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to specialize and get like attract clients that are more than just kind of the ticket takers, and they just come in, they get their adjustment, they're gone, but you really want to work with someone to solve a problem over a period of time, it helps if you have messaging around that so that the person you're talking to gets the value of what you do and really what it is you do. Because when you say chiropractor, everyone's like, oh, okay, you crack backs. Or if I get into a car accident, you're probably someone I should go to. They don't realize the full like breadth of the value of going to a chiropractor.
Yes.
Like even like as a child, if you're having regular adjustments, that can change your development. And if you have chronic pain later in life, like those kinds of things, people don't understand that.
Totally.
So if you choose what you're going to specialize in and, what you want to be known for is that people send, whoever that person is to you. So in this instance, send my kids to you. You need to be able to communicate that.
Yes.
So how you would do that is when someone asks, what do you do? You would definitely still lead with, I'm a chiropractor, because that's what's naturally going to come out of your mouth. It's the answer that they're expecting. But then you can say, but I am a little bit different than you probably are thinking of.
Got it.
And that gives you a good segue to kind of talk a little bit more about what you really do.
Right. So that kind of bridging statement might go. So for instance, my wife is a chiropractor as well, and she has an expertise in helping kids with learning difficulties. And she deals with a lot of kind of babies that might be developmentally delayed and stuff like that as well. So, her statement might be, yeah, I'm a chiropractor, but, my practice is mostly with kids. And believe it or not, I actually work with lots of kids who have learning difficulties and are developmentally delayed. And I help them kind of get back to their best. Is that kind of a sort of statement that we're wanting to kind of head towards?
Yeah, that like what you just said is definitely, it piques curiosity. It's very clear. And it kind of leads into the fact that, I'm not quote unquote just a chiropractor. But I actually have, if you want to talk about it, kind of a framework that
Yes.
You've seen it, haven't you?
Yeah. I've told you, I've been stalking. So yeah, I love your framework.
I have a framework that you can use that really kind of helps you cover the real breadth of why you do what you do in a way that people aren't just like, oh, okay, but like they really kind of on a deep level understand it and kind of want to root you on.
Yeah, I love this framework. And if we could do a dive into it, and then also to let our listeners know, is that when you're finished listening to this, I want you to head on over to Holly's website, and I'll have all links through there as well, and sign up to download this, because there's a great PDF that goes along that walks you through this. But I think we can do a good job certainly kind of chatting through each of the 3 questions. Is there 3 from memory?
Yeah, there's 3. And I'll give you the link to it because it's not going to be on my homepage for much longer.
Right. Got
I'll
it.
give you a link that they can find it.
I'll make sure that that's in the show notes as well. All right, let's go. I'm excited.
So the framework's called the Trailblazing Trifecta. Hold on, let me get a sip of water. All right, losing my voice here. So it's called the Trailblazing Trifecta. So it has 3 parts. And the first part is your philosophy. And this is where you really share your point of view of why you do what you do. So when I was talking earlier about how people that go into healing practices usually have a story or like a calling to do this work, usually that's a part of their philosophy. Like they are seeing a problem in the world that people are missing, or a problem in the industry that people are missing, and they really want to create awareness for it. So your philosophy is, in relation to, so for example, we'll take your wife, for example, since we have that information. She works with children with learning developmental delays.
Yep.
And so her point of view is, that they might be seeing all of these different types of practitioners, but not realizing that it's a very, there's a neurological
Yes.
challenge here that could be adjusted physically versus, seeing other types of support services.
Yeah.
Like you don't realize that it's kind of like a mechanic, like there's a wiring thing here that if we make some adjustments can actually open up a lot for them.
Yeah. I mean, well, Lauren's experience is that, so many of these kids are just medicated. And as parents,
Right.
we kind of just do what our trusted health advisor tells us, which is, hey man, whack this kid on some drugs. So we do that. And many of them don't realize that, through some really specific chiropractic care, some lifestyle changes and stuff like that, these kids thrive as well. So that would be her kind of background story, that her realization.
So everything you just said is like the philosophy.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're kind of creating awareness, like you're kind of bridging the gap between what people expect and are used to. So being medicated and, just kind of covering up the symptoms of a real problem versus treating the root cause. And so in what you just said, you really bridge the gap between this is what people are doing and what they expect. And then this is how we're approaching it. Like, this is why we're doing this, because it doesn't have to be about it that way. They can thrive without medication. They can thrive in even better than they were before. So that's philosophy. The second piece is methodology. So, if we're getting into semantics, method is how you solve a problem. It's like the actual modality. And the methodology is why you would do it that way.
Sorry.
So
is the philosophy the why and method the how, or the other way around?
So yes. So it's how and then why you do it that way. So philosophy is why you're called to do this work, why you're doing it.
Yeah, got it. Yep.
And the methodology is why you do it the way you do it.
Yes. Yep. Got it.
So if you were to continue on with what you were saying and say, so what I do is I work on the root cause of the delay with my patients and helping them through chiropractic adjustments to open up like whatever it physically actually does.
Yes.
That's the methodology. So it's like I'm using chiropractor like adjustments, which is the method. And this is what it's doing, which is why it's solving the problem.
Yeah, got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
And then promise, which is the third piece, is what happens as a result.
Yes.
So that would be they end up thriving without medication. They end up going so much further than they could before, like those kinds of things. So when you string these all together, it's actually pretty simple, and it can be in like 3 sentences. And this could be an elevator pitch. When I work with the clients, we usually have like a long form version that kind of covers all the bases. And then we shrink it down to just 3 sentences that can be said in like 30 to 45 seconds. So if you needed to get in front of a room and get up and say what you do, you can get through it all without having to read a script or anything like that. So yeah, when you string it together, it sounds a little bit like, so what I have found is that in today's world, we are medicating a lot of children for symptoms that could be solved on a root level for good. This is like paraphrasing. And so what I do is I work with children that have developmental delays, and I use chiropractic adjustments to, I actually don't know the science behind it, what it does. Blah, blah, blah.
You're doing amazingly well so far. I'm impressed. I feel like I am kind of leaving you hanging out there as well. But I think our audience kind of gets it. So, we would explain a little bit in terms of, and I'm trying
without going too far down like the science rabbit hole, but just like kind of the big picture, what happens.
Yeah.
And then so as a result, my patients are able to thrive and excel through these difficulties with reduce medication or no medication at all.
Yeah. I get, when I was going through this, I kind of ran through the process actually for my audio media business, which is where we kind of
Mhm.
help, health professionals with their marketing. And uh, it was so nice for me to kind of go through, and I've done different versions of this, but I've never found a version that was quite as simplified as yours is. And then I can see that, like, if this was almost, and I really want our listeners to think about, if this is where you started, like before
Mhm.
you chose the name of your practice to open your doors, all those kind of things there too. If you sat down and you started with this, it makes everything else so much more simple, from, maybe what colors that you would use, to what logo that you would choose, to what videos that you would make, to what platforms that you're on. All of those kind of things then start to be great. And, the one thing that I always realized is that people who had clarity of purpose always seem to have so much more energy and excitement around their life and their work than those people that didn't. And it's so damn attractive when somebody just is oozing with purpose and passion as well. And this is a really simple process. So I'm hoping you can kind of listen, gang. I'm bullish on this process that I want you to head on over to, the links will be in the show notes and stuff like that. Spend some time. It doesn't take a long time. I think I've been continuing to work on it over the last few weeks. It was not like I did it that 10 minutes and finished. I keep on diving deeper, and I've got some even distinctions in the back of my mind as we're talking now as
Mhm.
well. So can you expand, like, once they've done this work and they've got some clarity around it there too, what happens next?
Yeah. So the worksheet is, it takes like 10 to 15 minutes to get through it the first time, but I actually have a 10-week course where you dive deep into each of the different areas to really clarify it. So it can, you can go as narrow or as deep as you want, really. So what happens after you've really clarified your message is exactly what you were saying, which is to take it across your marketing. So now you know what videos to create, which is, so you'd be creating videos about just sharing that philosophy and sharing it maybe through a few different case studies of patients that you've had, um, or bringing up recent events or articles in publications that chiropractors would be reading, or that your patients would be reading. So maybe parenting magazines, and writing articles that share this philosophy and the way you solve it. So you're starting to create awareness for this specialty that you have. And when you're so clear on what your point of view is and the type of work that you want to be doing, it makes it easy for people to refer to you. And then you can even start creating packages for yourself that, are a certain number of weeks long, that maybe have some education in between sessions or assignments in between sessions, depending on what your specialty is. And those kinds of things can be sold at a higher premium than just the dollars per hour per session basis. And they can be sold in a much different way. So it's another way to kind of expand your practice from the ticket takers and into something that could really evolve over time into more passive revenue if you were to package that, and like package just the education pieces. Like, there's just so many things that you can do with it. And the first step is just really understanding, okay, what is my message? What am I here for? What do I want to be known for?
Mm.
And just really building your brand and your marketing around that.
Holly, I'm sure you come across this with your clients that you coach. And I see this often, that when I'm encouraging practitioners to, take a stand for, here's who I want, my ideal patient, I fill my practice full of these people here too. There tends to be, because in the back of their mind, they say, well, hang on, Angus, if I just kind of focus on kids with learning difficulties, what about all the other people, the mums and dads,
Yeah.
the people with the headaches, that kind of stuff there too. Like I want them all to come to me. So I don't want to just minimize my practice down to that, because they feel like they're then going to be fishing out of a pool with less fish. How do you
Mhm.
deal with that kind of feedback?
So this is so common, whether you're starting out or you experience, like, the thought of limiting yourself to just one ideal client feels literally limiting. But the thing you have to keep in mind is a couple things. Um, One, you are going to become known for this work, which makes it very easy for people to refer to you. It makes you stand out in the Rolodex of chiropractors and health practitioners. So you're going to attract more clients because, for instance, if I'm looking for a therapist or whatnot, I'm going through and I'm trying to find the one that solves my problem. It's kind of like when you buy a car, for the real big issues, you take it to the dealership, to the person that specializes in working on your type of car, versus, the backyard garage kind of thing, which is okay for oil changes. For the big stuff, like we want the professionals to handle that. You're becoming that professional, that specialist. And so that's part one, is that you're actually going to attract more people this way. And part two is you don't have to turn away the other people that are still going to come to you because they found you online in the local Google listing, or their friend who maybe brought their child to you for their learning disability has been talking about you with someone else that might not fit that avatar or that ideal client, but they just loved how you really listened and how like their friend gushed about you. So they're going to come to you, just for general adjustments or whatever the problem is they're having, in hopes that you can help them. And you can make that decision if it's a good fit or not. So really you're putting yourself in choice about who you're seeing. And that's going to make things worlds easier for you.
Yeah. I think when you kind of look across successful brands across the board, that we see this kind of focus in all of them. Now, whether it be, at the very pointy end, if you looked at someone like Gucci, for instance. Now, they're not saying, hey, man, there's only a small portion of people that can afford our stuff, so therefore we'll make some really cheap clothes as well. They've put a line in the sand and said, here's what we're doing. Then you go the other end of stuff, and, Walmart also isn't kind of making, $10,000 jackets. And then we see with Apple with what they do. And I'm kind of reminded, I heard a really clever kind of marketing a case study of a guy in Sydney, Australia here as well, who he was a plumber and he branded himself as the hot water guy. Like that's what he was. His website was that, all his branding was that kind of stuff. And so he would come along and fix people's hot water services. And then at the end, when he's finished, he would simply say to the people, hey, listen, if you have leaky taps and leaky toilets, you need drains unblocked, all that kind of unblocked. He goes, I do all of that stuff as well. Here's my card, give me a call. But his avenue in the door was he positioned himself as, the hot water guy. And I think for so many of us, for many of you, you might be really happy just always and only dealing with kids. And if that's what you want to do, then do that, or weight loss or fertility, all that kind of stuff there too. But if you like some kind of, variance in your practice, that would be a really easy strategy that you could do to just diversify inside of that. But I think if we don't take the time to focus a really laser sharp message, it's so easy to get lost.
That's so true. The hardest part really is getting the person in the door the first time. Once they know and love you, then absolutely you can say, I can also help you with all of these other things and offer those services. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we've gone through a journey where we've kind of got some clarity in around our philosophy, our methodology, our promise. When somebody's done that, in many cases, is that enough for them to get the aha and unstuck? Or what are the next stepping stones that you tend to go through people that are in that kind of plateau at for whatever their plateau is?
Yeah. So from there, it can get a little bit more complex depending on what it is they need. But like at the very basic is, once you have that message, creating a marketing plan for yourself for how can I get this message out in as many ways and in front of as many people as possible. So that might mean putting together a social media strategy. That might mean putting together a blogging strategy, doing interviews like this. So I rebranded at the beginning of this year, and I put together a strategy where I'm going to be on between 30 and 50 podcasts over the next year to get my new message out. And where your practices are probably mostly local,
yes,
there's still a lot of opportunities to be creating those kinds of marketing plans where you're just getting yourself out in front of as many people as possible. And it's a little bit more work up front to get the traction. But once people start to get to know you, so for example, networking, I've always been terrible at networking because I'm not super social.
Yes, not a strength
but
of
I
mine
found the
either.
key.
Yes, okay, share please.
It's to go to the same event over and over again.
Okay.
I found that I would go to an event and I would find no satisfaction and I'd want to leave the entire time I was there. And so I wouldn't go to that one again. And I try this other one. Maybe I'll like this other one. But what I found is that if you actually stick to the same one and you go at least 3 times, people will start to know you and they'll start to talk to you, and then they actually start to get to know what you do. So it's just like that. Like if you put the time in up front and you get the traction and you start building those links back to your website, you start building those referral partnerships from the people that you've been marketing with, the clients will start to come in and the flow will continue to come from the marketing efforts you did. And then you can put it on a little bit more of like an autopilot kind of thing, where maybe you're just, posting this many times on social media a week and that kind of thing. So once you get over that kind of initial, we'll call it debut or launch,
Yes.
things do get easier.
Yeah. Can you tell me, because you talk about a marketing plan, do you have some thoughts about what the ingredients should be of a good marketing plan? What does a marketing plan look like?
Yeah. So actually, I didn't even mention that kind of before you start marketing, you need to make sure your website is in alignment with the message.
Yes.
Because all of your marketing is going to be pointing people back to the website.
Yes.
So it's kind of what you want. You want to create your website to be the hub where people can learn about your services. They can learn more about that message, that philosophy, that methodology. You might have some articles on there that have case studies or some of the things that are going to be in your marketing. You want them also to just reside on your website, where someone that's stalking you, for instance, can, get all their information that they need in order to hire you. So that would be actually the first step. And then can you ask your question again about the marketing plan?
Yeah. So you talked about kind of putting together a marketing plan, and for many of my listeners, the marketing plan is, you may as well have said, look, can you just write the the first version of A to whatever of the phone book? It's like, what does it look like? I don't understand a marketing plan. We're not trained in these kind of things there too. So what should a really good marketing plan include in it, and what shouldn't be in there?
So when you're creating a marketing plan, there's a couple things you want to look for. One, there are a zillion different ways to market yourself, and you want to focus on 2 or 3 maximum.
Yes.
So examples would be, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Those are 3 different outlets. So if you're focusing on all 3, you're probably spreading yourself too thin.
Mm-hmm.
So part of doing this messaging work and this brand work up front is that you really get clear on who your clients are. So you know where to market yourself. For example, if you are working with children, you're working with weight loss, you're working with fertility, LinkedIn is probably not where you want to be.
Yes.
Because that's more for a corporate audience.
Uh-huh.
Facebook would be great for you. Twitter, probably not so much. Twitter is more for media outlets, brands, that kind of thing. So it's a great place to network.
Yes.
Not really a great place to find clients.
Uh-huh.
So for most of your practitioners, I would say Facebook is probably pretty good. And even just putting together a Facebook group strategy versus a Facebook Live strategy, there's all this complexity. So chances are you've read about the different marketing methods. Pick 2 to focus on at first. And what you can do is to make things easier on yourself is when you put together the materials for your marketing. So the materials being the information that you're sharing about your practice, about the trifecta pieces we were talking about, philosophy, methodology, promise. So the pieces that you're going to share about those things, you can repurpose them across different platforms.
Yes.
So what you write for your website could be put on Facebook. And then you could even do a behind the scenes of why you created it and also post that to Facebook. And then you could do a interview on a podcast talking about the same thing. So you start to create this body of work, essentially, that can be used in a lot of different ways. And then once you've kind of established the habit of marketing yourself on those outlets, you can expand it because you already have content to feed more outlets. So if marketing is overwhelming to you, start small with the plan to, as you start to gain traction and get good at it, you can start expanding into other areas, because you don't need to be in everywhere from the get-go. That's just too much to handle.
Yeah, it's this has been a consistent message that I've been hearing from lots of the guests on the show over this last month of, just narrow things down, because I think, going deep in one channel has been, in my experience, look, I do a little bit of posting on Facebook, but most of the posting that I do, certainly through Audio Media, is, I just hit the button under Instagram that says, hey, do you want to post this to Facebook as well? I know that doesn't
Mhm.
impact the reach as much, but it's better than nothing. And Instagram is where my audience tends to be. And it's also a platform that I like as well. So for me, I've kind of given up the idea of having to be everywhere doing everything, because that gets overwhelming and I end up kind of doing nothing. So it kind of simplifies it all for me as well. If we're to get like a little more kind of nitty gritty in terms of granular
Mhm.
as well, we've chosen a platform, and if we mentioned before, maybe it is Facebook that we've chosen as well. In terms of strategies to communicate and frequency to communicate, do you have some thoughts about that? Videos, images, how often, how long, those kind of things as well?
Yeah, so I can tell you what I do. And first, I want to point out what you said about you focus on Instagram because that's what you like. That's also really important, is to how do you like to market yourself? Do you like being on video? Do you like speaking? Would you rather write? Like if a camera comes near you, do you freak out? Maybe video is not the best. So that's important to understand what you like. And so I'll share what I do, and keep in mind that mine is definitely much more complex because I've been doing this for a while. But you can take what I do and pick out the pieces that you feel like would work for you, and it'd be totally fine. So how I do my marketing is I have an outline that I follow for videos. And so I'll choose a topic and then I'll follow my outline to outline what I'm going to talk about. It really actually follows very much the trifecta. We're just talking about the trifecta in this particular topic that we're talking about. So yeah, I can't come up with an example off the top of my head, but if you give me one, I can use it. Uh, so I record the video, literally just like this. I have my background set up. I have 2 lights in front of me, so I can do it any time of day, whatever.
Yes.
Record the video. It's usually 5 minutes or less. That's a pretty good length. Shorter the better, actually. If it's like 2 minutes, that's fabulous. Send that to a transcription service. So there's 2. There's that work really well. One is rev.com, rev.com. It's $1 a minute, and that's actually a person transcribing. Or if you just want it quick and dirty, temi.com, Temi, which is the same company, but Temi just runs it through software, and you just get a transcript that's been done by a robot. Not as accurate, but good when you're in a hurry. And it's only 10 cents per minute, so
it's definitely cheaper.
Yeah. So you take that, and you just clean it up so that you take all your ums and ahs and awkward sentences that make sense when you're speaking, but make no sense when you're reading it.
Yes.
Clean that up.
Yeah.
That goes on your blog. So that now you have your blog post done, you have a video done. The video can go on YouTube. The video can also go on the blog. Then those same things can go to Facebook. Those same things can go to Instagram. You might just take a screenshot of the video, maybe put some text on it of the screenshot, like what the title is. So that could go on Instagram. So basically I use that to distribute. And then I take it one step further with each topic. I actually have, so I have a mastermind of people that are doing this kind of implementation, and I create cheat sheets for them.
Yes.
So I have this worksheet where you take the topic and then you break it into smaller chunks. And also engagement posts. So you might ask a question that's relevant to the topic. So if I wrote an article about how to pick your projects, I might have an engagement question. What projects are you working on this week? It's just very simple. So you end up with just one piece of content. You end up with, 5 to 7 different posts that could go on a variety of different outlets. And then it's just a matter of scheduling them, which that part, a lot of this can be outsourced pretty easily.
Hmm.
Once you have the process down, really you just need to be creating the content, and then the rest can be outsourced where someone else breaks it into these pieces, schedules it, whatever. I feel like I just went on a really nerdy tangent. Was that like too?
No, no, it's stunning, Holly. And I think what I'm what I love about that is it's so easy for so many of the practitioners listening to go into overwhelm to think that, you know, I've got to create an entirely new piece of content each and every day, and maybe multiple pieces of content. But what Holly's kind of shown there is how a 2-minute video can become multiple pieces of content. And then I'm hoping what our listeners are seeing too is that really inside of this, the only bit that Holly had to do was get in front of the camera. Like the whole rest of that could have been outsourced to somebody. And I'm really bullish too on we all have support staff. Now, whether it's, you know, the front desk, we call them chiropractic assistants that are answering the phone, doing those kind of stuff there too. Most of them will do this for you. They can be trained to do this for you. If you sit down and work out a workflow, you've got a worksheet. And it doesn't, you know, that whole process, I do a very similar thing in terms of my content. And it takes me about 90 minutes on a Monday morning to create, you know, 20 pieces of content. I have 3 pieces of content go out every day, and a podcast that goes out, and all that kind of stuff there too. Now, I'm pretty black belted with how it goes there too. And I'm not suggesting that most people need to be posting on the frequency that I am, but man, you know, 30 minutes once a week handballed off to your staff there too. So no, I'm in such support
And the
of
cool
what
thing
you're
is
saying.
that you can also recycle it.
Yes.
So I have my content set up on a 6-month recycle
Yeah.
where I have this super nerdy setup. I'm really good at setting up processes and systems to do stuff for me. But I have it set up so that when I post a piece of content, it ages for 6 months and then comes back,
Yes.
so that I can decide, you know, does this align with what I'm doing right now? And I can actually repost it, because, you know, people aren't paying. I mean, I have like 2-minute attention spans. No one knows that I posted 6 months ago.
Totally.
So like once you have your content, you have this body of content, it becomes even easier because you don't have to create as much new stuff, because you can start recycling things that you've already done.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a great kind of strategy there as well. You know, what was it, 6 months that got a lot of kind of engagement? You know, you've possibly got a whole new audience. And the fact of the matter is the engagement, certainly organically on so many of our posts, is so low anyway. The chance of that same person who saw it engage with it before seeing it again is also kind of really minimal.
And
through
if they
there.
did see it and engage it before, chances are they liked it and wouldn't mind being reminded of what you had to say at that time. You mean,
Yeah.
on Facebook, they always post, you know, you always see people posting like their this day 5 years ago.
Yes.
And it's still interesting. It's still relevant. And you can do the same thing with your content. You don't have to say that it was posted 5 years ago, but you can, you know, post it again and it'll get shared just as many times.
Yeah. And in fact, there's even some social media platform kind of planning pieces of software that'll do that for you. I think Meet Edgar and some of those
Yep.
as
Meet
well.
Edgar. There's another one,
Yes.
socialbee.com, which kind of does the same thing. And yeah, you basically load up the library and it just posts stuff on a rotating basis for you. You don't even have to look at it.
Yeah. And I think implementing and using some of those tools is great. You know, there's different talk around that they decrease engagement, stuff like that. I'm not actually sure if that's true. You know, I've looked at some tests that have been done by, you know, some different things actually say, look, it doesn't impact it at all. And it can make it a whole bunch kind of easier
I
as
think
well.
what impacts it more is not posting at all.
See, this was exactly, you know, my thoughts with it too. And I was laughing with Tony, a great buddy of mine, the other day. I went, you know what? If using one of these platforms decreases my reach by 10%, let's just say that it does, you know, my strategy now has increased my productivity by 3,000 or 4,000%, like literally. So I'll take 10% off 3,000 or 4,000% than me getting overwhelmed beforehand, pulling my hair out and going and not doing anything. So
it's just one more example of just don't overthink things, everyone. Like, do what you can do, the best of your ability, and it's better than, you know, done is better than perfect.
Yes.
Though I like to say good enough is better than perfect, because sometimes done, you know, if it's doesn't have the right energy behind it, it's not going to help you. But don't overthink it and allow all of the negativity to kind of kill your kill your role.
Yeah, get the vibe here too.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of wind things up and bring some things to a point here too, because we started off talking about, being stuck in practice, in life, at whatever level it is there too. And, I think about how much energy it kind of brings when you have real clarity around why you're doing what you're doing as well, which is why I don't do this a lot at the end of our podcast. I really want to encourage my listeners to head on over to Holly's site and in fact, go to the show notes here, because there'll be a link actually where you can kind of download the whole process. There'll be a whole process that Holly will take you by the hand, and she will walk you through this as well. And it will help you get unstuck, So Holly, do you have any kind of final thoughts that you want to talk about? Anything that we kind of haven't touched base with today?
Nothing that we haven't already touched. But I guess, yeah, just starting with the messaging piece will be, I think, a huge win for people. And it's okay for you to do that worksheet and kind of test it out and see how people respond. And then, make adjustments as needed. I think the most important thing is that you start with something and then pay attention to how it works. And, you're going to adjust, your message is going to grow and evolve just as your business grows and evolves and you grow and evolve. So don't feel like you need to tie yourself into some kind of script and like only ever say that.
Yeah. And I'm betting, for those of you that take the time to do this, that you get a renewed sense of energy through it too. And I want to kind of give one caveat as well, is that I think that this process is a work in process as well. It's don't try and make it perfect from day one. When Holly's asking her questions, start to get down your thoughts in terms of, what is my philosophy? Why did I get engaged this? What is my how? And for some of you, you might just sit down there and, stream of thought, get this all kind of nailed. But I certainly didn't as well. But it'll start to, you can see how this can be the foundation of kind of everything sort of moving forwards as well, Holly. So on behalf of my audience, I want to thank you very much for putting that little tool together. And I love your emails. I love the messages that you're sharing as well. So I'm going to want to, obviously when you download this, you'll kind of get on Holly's list that she will kind of share with you as well. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I know this was a bit kind of tricky and around kind of bedtime for your boys and all those kind of things, but you've been super easy to deal with and a pleasure.
My dog's sitting here right now. Like you need to get off the phone.
I did see a little furry.
I need my snuggle time.
No, well, I'm a huge dog person, and my dog usually is sitting in the background, but he's kind of the other end of the house today as well. So no, we're a very dog-friendly podcast here as well. Dogs are always welcome. So,
and I'm happy to be here. I was so glad that we could make it work.
Yeah, thanks so much, Holly. So perhaps we can kind of wind ourselves up with a round two somewhere down the track, because of all the questions I had to go through, we only got kind of touched on. It's amazing how quickly kind of 45 minutes goes through. So Holly, enjoy your evening. Thanks for sharing so generously with us today.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me on over at addiomedia.com/join. That's addiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.